The social media persona. Are you curating yourself without noticing? The digital mirror. How social media shapes your identity. Imagine waking up in a world where every action, thought, and feeling must be shared, liked, and validated to exist. This is not a dystopian fantasy. It is our reality. Social media has become the mirror through which we see ourselves, and in this reflection we do not just observe, we edit, enhance, and filter. The self is no longer an organic entity, but a digital construct. Every post, caption, and selfie is a deliberate act of self-definition. We are not just expressing who we are actively curating a version of ourselves that aligns with the expectations of the online world. The problem is that the more we shape our digital personas, the less we recognize ourselves. The desire for authenticity clashes with the need for social approval, forcing us into a paradox. We want to be real, but only in a way that is socially acceptable and appealing. Manufactured identity. The algorithm's hidden influence. It is easy to believe that our online presence is entirely self-directed. But behind the scenes, algorithms subtly guide our behaviors, rewarding certain expressions of identity while suppressing others. Social media does not just provide a space for self-expression, it dictates what types of identities thrive. What gets engagement? Confidence, beauty, success, excitement, never insecurity, doubt, or failure. As a result, we unconsciously shape our personalities to fit the algorithmic mold. We present the version of ourselves that is most likely to gain approval, even if it does not reflect our true emotions or thoughts. This constant performance erodes authenticity. Are we genuinely choosing how to present ourselves, or are we unknowingly following an algorithm's blueprint for social validation? The dictatorship of likes. How external validation controls. You in Byung-Chul Han's view, modern society has moved from external oppression to self-imposed control. We no longer need authority figures to tell us what to do. We willingly shape our behavior based on social rewards. Nowhere is this more evident than in the world of social media. The dopamine rush of likes, comments, and shares creates a psychological loop of reinforcement. Every time a post performs well, we internalize that version of ourselves as more valuable. Over time, this reshapes our identity, making us more dependent on external validation for self-worth. But what happens when the likes stop? The anxiety of invisibility sets in. The fear of irrelevance drives people to curate even more aggressively, leading to a never-ending cycle of performance. In the pursuit of digital recognition, we risk losing any sense of who we are beyond the screen. The aesthetic self. When identity becomes a product, social media is not just a tool for communication, it is a marketplace, and the most valuable product is personal identity. Influencers, brands, and even everyday users have turned their personalities into commodities, crafting aesthetically pleasing, marketable versions of themselves. This is why authenticity online often feels artificial. The raw, unfiltered self is rarely profitable. Instead, we see the rise of carefully packaged personalities designed for engagement. Vulnerability is rehearsed, spontaneity is staged, and even flaws are aestheticized. In this hyper-curated landscape, true authenticity becomes nearly impossible. When identity itself is turned into a product, how can we separate who we truly are from the version of ourselves we are selling? The hypervisibility trap. When everyone is watching, are you still you? The age of exposure, how constant surveillance alters behavior. Imagine living in a glass house where every move you make is visible to the world. This is the reality of hypervisibility in the digital era. The moment you step into the online space, you are not just an individual, you are a spectacle. Byung-Chul Han describes modern society as a society of transparency, where the expectation is to be constantly seen, heard, and available. But what does this do to identity? When you are aware of being watched, you begin to modify your behavior. You filter out actions that might be judged negatively and exaggerate those that will gain approval. This is not just about social media influencers or celebrities. It happens to everyone. Whether consciously or subconsciously, the awareness of an invisible audience forces us into performative existence. In this world, authenticity is not just difficult, it is dangerous. The performance of self, living for an audience. From an early age, we are conditioned to present a version of ourselves that will be socially accepted. But in the digital era, this performance has intensified. We are not just curating moments, we are constructing entire personas. Every interaction, from casual conversations to personal struggles, becomes a potential piece of content. Are you actually enjoying your vacation, or just capturing the perfect shot to prove that you are? Are your emotions real, or have they become rehearsed performances for an audience? The more we perform, the more detached we become from our inner selves. The line between public and private, real and staged, starts to blur. Eventually, we are no longer just living. We are broadcasting. The paradox of transparency. The more we show, the less we know ourselves. The modern world promotes the idea that sharing more equals being more authentic. But in reality, the opposite often happens. The more we reveal, the less we introspect. Every thought is externalized before we have time to sit with it. Every feeling is analyzed through the lens of how it will be perceived. Every experience is evaluated based on its social currency rather than its personal meaning. Byung-Chul Han argues that in this constant state of exposure, true self-awareness disappears. We do not have time to process who we are because we are too busy presenting an idealized version of ourselves. We are hyper-visible to the world, but increasingly invisible to ourselves, escaping the visibility trap. Can we find ourselves again? If hypervisibility is stripping us of authenticity, how do we reclaim it? The answer lies in intentional disconnection. The moments when we are truly alone, without an audience, are the moments when we reconnect with our raw, unfiltered selves. This does not mean rejecting social media altogether, but rather redefining our relationship with it. Can we engage without performing? Can we exist without needing validation? Can we sit in silence without the urge to broadcast? Authenticity cannot thrive in an environment where every action is designed for public consumption. To rediscover who we are, we must be willing to step away from the stage, even if just for a moment. The productivity paradox. Are you a person or just a project? The rise of the entrepreneurial self. In today's world, being human is no longer enough. You must be a brand, a business, a constant work in progress. We have internalized the idea that our value is tied to how productive, efficient, and optimized we are. Byung-Chul Han describes this shift as the rise of the entrepreneurial self. Unlike past generations where external oppression shaped behavior, modern individuals exploit themselves. You are not just working a job, you are selling yourself. Every action, skill, and even personality trait becomes part of a personal brand that must be carefully cultivated and marketed. This relentless self-optimization blurs the line between personal growth and self-exploitation. When everything you do is measured by productivity, when does life stop being a project and start being an experience? The illusion of constant self-improvement. We are sold the idea that self-improvement is the key to happiness. Books, courses, and influencers tell us that if we just wake up earlier, work harder, and optimize every second, we will finally become the best version of ourselves. But self-improvement, when taken to an extreme, becomes a form of self-enslavement. It convinces us that we are never enough, that there is always something more to fix, refine, or optimize. Instead of finding fulfillment, we enter an endless loop of dissatisfaction, chasing an ideal that never truly arrives. The irony? The more we optimize ourselves, the further we move from authenticity. We are not improving for the sake of personal growth. We are improving to remain competitive, relevant, and marketable. The burnout epidemic. When productivity becomes self-destruction. The dark side of the productivity obsession is burnout. People are exhausted, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. The pressure to constantly achieve, perform, and improve leaves no room for stillness, reflection, or rest. Byung-Chul Han argues that we have moved beyond a society of discipline into a society of performance, where individuals willingly push themselves to exhaustion. The worst part? Since we are the ones driving ourselves, we cannot even recognize it as oppression. Instead, we see it as motivation. We treat rest as a weakness. We see slowing down as failure. And so we continue running, faster, harder, until we collapse. Reclaiming identity beyond productivity. So how do we break free from this cycle? The first step is redefining our sense of worth. Your value is not measured by how productive you are. Your identity is not a project to be optimized. We must learn to exist without the pressure to constantly produce, to embrace moments of idleness without guilt, to rediscover passions that serve no purpose beyond personal fulfillment. Authenticity cannot survive in an environment where every aspect of existence is monetized and optimized. Sometimes the most radical act in a world obsessed with productivity is simply to exist, for no reason other than to be. The fear of being boring. Why we're obsessed with being interesting. The new social currency, relevance over authenticity. In a world where attention is the most valuable commodity, being boring has become the ultimate fear. We are constantly bombarded with images of exciting lives, traveling to exotic locations, attending exclusive events, living a lifestyle that seems curated for an audience. This has created an unspoken rule. To be valuable, you must be interesting. Your worth is measured by how engaging, unique, or entertaining your life appears to others. Social media amplifies this pressure, turning everyday existence into a performance. But in this desperate attempt to seem fascinating, something crucial is lost: authenticity. Are we really living, or are we just collecting moments to prove that our lives are worth watching? The fear of being invisible. Beneath this obsession with appearing interesting lies a deeper fear: the fear of being ignored. In the past, anonymity was the default. Today, it feels like a failure. People no longer simply experience life. They document it, share it, and seek validation from others. Every event, from a morning coffee to a vacation, becomes content. The goal is not just to live, but to be seen living. But the more we chase relevance, the more disconnected we become from ourselves. We stop doing things because we love them and start doing them because they make us look more exciting. The result? An identity shaped by external validation rather than internal fulfillment. The commodification of experience. Experiences have become products, consumed not for personal meaning, but for social capital. We travel to take the perfect photo, buy books to display rather than read, and curate a lifestyle that aligns with what is considered engaging. This turns life into a checklist. Have you traveled enough? Do you have a unique hobby? Are you constantly evolving, reinventing, staying ahead of trends? The moment you stop, you risk fading into irrelevance. Byung-Chul Han argues that this obsession with performance leads to exhaustion. We are not just working for companies, we are working on ourselves as if we were brands. Every moment must be optimized, monetized, and shared. Otherwise, it feels wasted. The power of embracing simplicity. The irony is that the most meaningful moments in life are often the simplest: the quiet conversations, the solitary walks, the ordinary experiences that bring real joy. But in a world obsessed with spectacle, these moments feel unworthy of attention. Breaking free from this mindset requires a radical shift, embracing boredom, accepting that life does not need to be an endless series of highlights, understanding that true identity is not found in how others perceive us, but in how we experience ourselves. The question is not whether your life is interesting enough for others. The real question is, does it feel real to you? Emotional branding. Are your feelings even yours? The commercialization of emotions. In today's world, even our emotions are no longer private. Every feeling, happiness, sadness, excitement, or nostalgia, has been repackaged, branded, and sold back to us. We don't just experience emotions, we consume them through music, movies, ads, and social media. Brands have learned how to manipulate feelings, crafting marketing strategies that make us believe certain products, lifestyles, or aesthetics are tied to our deepest emotional experiences. A simple cup of coffee isn't just coffee, it's coziness, self-care, or luxury. A sneaker isn't just a shoe, it represents freedom, adventure, or individuality. The result? We start outsourcing our emotions, letting corporations dictate what love, happiness, and success should feel like. But if our emotions are being sold to us, are they even ours anymore? The algorithm knows how you feel. With the rise of AI-driven advertising, emotions have become predictable. Tech companies track our digital footprints, analyze our behaviors, and deliver content designed to trigger specific feelings. Feeling lonely? You'll see ads for dating apps. Feeling insecure? You'll be bombarded with self-improvement courses, beauty products, and fitness programs. Social media platforms go even further, shaping our emotions in real time. The curated feeds, the trending topics, the suggested posts, all of it is designed to evoke reactions, keeping us emotionally engaged and, ultimately, more profitable. The scariest part? Most people don't even realize it's happening. They believe their emotions are organic, unaware that their moods are being subtly manipulated by an invisible system designed for maximum engagement. The personal branding epidemic. In this landscape, even people have become brands. We no longer just express emotions, we market them. Happiness must be photographed, sadness must be poetic, and anger must be politically charged. Vulnerability is no longer an intimate experience, but a tool for engagement. Crying on camera can build a following. Sharing a personal struggle can create viral content. But what happens when our emotions become performative? Do we even feel them anymore, or are we simply playing a role for an audience? The line between authentic expression and emotional branding is becoming dangerously thin. Byung-Chul Han argues that we have entered an era where self-exploitation is disguised as self-expression. We are no longer just experiencing life, we are monetizing it, curating it, and selling it to the highest bidder. Reclaiming your emotions. So, how do we escape this emotional marketplace? How do we take back ownership of our feelings? The answer lies in rediscovering solitude, moments of pure, unfiltered experience without an audience, sitting with emotions instead of packaging them for social media, feeling something without needing to label, share, or monetize it. It means questioning the emotions we consume. Are we truly happy, or are we just mimicking the happiness we've been sold? Do we love something because it resonates with us, or because it's been marketed as lovable? The most radical act in a world obsessed with emotional branding is to feel something privately, without validation, without performance, without profit. The death of deep thought. Why reflection is becoming impossible. A world that never stops moving. We live in an era where silence is uncomfortable and stillness feels like wasted time. Every spare moment is filled with scrolling, notifications, and endless streams of content. Thinking deeply has become a rare luxury, something we no longer prioritize because we are too busy consuming. The modern world thrives on speed. We are expected to process information instantly, react quickly, and move on. Critical thinking, deep reflection, and philosophical inquiry require time, something our fast-paced society discourages. Byung-Chul Han argues that we have shifted from a society of contemplation to a society of hyperactivity. Instead of asking why, we ask what's next. Instead of diving deep into ideas, we skim headlines. The result? A generation that struggles to form original thoughts, trapped in an endless cycle of reaction rather than reflection. The distraction economy. Your attention is for sale. Attention is the most valuable currency in the digital age. Every platform, app, and brand is fighting for a fraction of your focus. The more distracted you are, the more profitable you become. Tech companies design their products to be addictive. Infinite scrolling, autoplay, and personalized recommendations ensure that your mind never gets a moment of true rest. The more time you spend consuming, the less time you have for introspection. But here's the paradox. The more information we absorb, the less we actually understand. Consuming endless content without reflection creates a shallow mind, one that knows many things but deeply understands nothing. In a world where everyone has an opinion, few people have real thoughts of their own. Are your beliefs truly yours, or are they just echoes of the content you consume? The death of solitude. Why we fear being alone with our thoughts. Deep thinking requires solitude. Some of the greatest philosophical ideas in history were born in moments of silence, isolation, and contemplation. But in today's hyper-connected world, solitude feels unnatural. People fill every quiet moment with distractions, music, podcasts, social media, because being alone with their thoughts is uncomfortable. Why? Because reflection forces us to confront difficult questions. Who am I? What do I truly believe? Am I living the life I want or just following what society expects? Instead of wrestling with these questions, we escape into entertainment. But without self-reflection, we lose the ability to truly know ourselves. We become strangers to our own minds, outsourcing our identity to external influences. How to reclaim deep thought. So, how do we bring back the lost art of deep thinking? First, we must embrace boredom. Instead of filling every empty moment with content, we need to allow our minds to wander. Some of the most profound insights come when we are doing nothing. Second, we must limit distractions. Creating intentional spaces for deep thought, whether through reading, journaling, or meditation, can help rewire our brains for focus. Lastly, we must question everything. Instead of accepting information at face value, we must engage with it critically. Thinking deeply is an act of resistance in a world that wants us to remain distracted. Because in the end, the ability to think for ourselves is the key to reclaiming who we truly are. Authenticity as a commodity. How being real became a marketing strategy. The rise of the authenticity economy. Once upon a time, authenticity was a deeply personal pursuit. It was about self-discovery, honesty, and living in alignment with one's values. But today, authenticity has been repackaged and sold as a brand. Social media influencers, celebrities, and even corporations now market themselves as real and relatable. Brands no longer just sell products, they sell personalities, emotions, and lifestyles. The phrase, "just be yourself," has become a marketing tool rather than genuine advice. Ironically, the more authenticity is commercialized, the less authentic it becomes. People carefully craft their raw and unfiltered moments, knowing that vulnerability sells. In a world where authenticity is a product, is anything real anymore? The paradox of performing authenticity. In a hyper-connected world, being real is no longer about self-expression. It's about perception. People feel pressure to present an image of authenticity rather than actually live it. Take social media influencers, for example. They stage candid photos, share their struggles in aesthetically pleasing ways, and cultivate an online persona that appears unfiltered. But behind the scenes, everything is curated for engagement. Even vulnerability is optimized for likes. The paradox is clear. The more we try to appear authentic, the more performative we become. The very act of proving our realness makes it artificial. Are we truly being ourselves, or are we just playing the role of someone who seems real? Why the market wants you to be authentic. Why has authenticity become such a powerful marketing tool? Because it creates trust. When brands or influencers appear genuine, people connect with them on a deeper level. And when people feel connected, they buy. Corporations now use relatable storytelling in ads. Luxury brands market exclusivity while pretending to be down to earth. Even political campaigns use personal anecdotes to make candidates seem more human. The ultimate irony? The system that encourages people to embrace their true selves is the same system that profits from their insecurities. If being authentic becomes just another strategy to increase sales, then is it even authenticity at all? Can we ever be truly authentic again? With authenticity turned into a commodity, how do we reclaim what is real? The first step is recognizing the difference between performing authenticity and actually living it. True authenticity isn't about proving anything to the world, it's about self-awareness. It's about making choices that align with your values, regardless of how they are perceived. This means disconnecting from the need for validation, questioning the narratives we've been sold, and embracing imperfection without the desire to package it for consumption. Authenticity is not something that can be sold, marketed, or optimized. It's something that must be lived. But in a world that profits from illusion, daring to be real is an act of rebellion. How capitalism profits from your identity crisis. The business of insecurity. Why you're never enough. Modern capitalism thrives on one fundamental idea: dissatisfaction. The system doesn't just sell products, it sells aspirations, idealized versions of who you should be. And to keep you consuming, it must convince you that you're never enough. From self-improvement books to skincare routines, from gym memberships to luxury fashion, everything is marketed as a way to fix yourself. The underlying message? There is always a better version of you waiting, if only you buy the right product. But here's the trap. The moment you reach your goal, a new standard appears. You finally get in shape, but now you need perfect skin. You earn more money, but now you need a luxury lifestyle. The cycle is endless. Because if you ever felt truly satisfied with yourself, the market would collapse. The identity trap. You are what you consume. In today's world, identity is no longer just about values and experiences. It's about purchases. What brands you wear, what music you stream, what diet you follow. These choices don't just shape how others see you, they shape how you see yourself. Social media has accelerated this transformation. Algorithms categorize you into consumer groups, suggesting products that fit your online behavior. Over time, you don't just buy products, you adopt them as part of your identity. The result? A world where people don't discover who they buy who they are. The market offers pre-packaged identities: the entrepreneur, the minimalist, the fitness guru, the world traveler. You're not just a person anymore. You're a brand, self-improvement or self-exploitation. The modern obsession with self-improvement is another way capitalism profits from your insecurities. Books, courses, coaches, and seminars promise to unlock your potential, but they also convince you that you're not good enough as you are. Work harder. Wake up earlier. Be more productive. Learn a new skill. Every moment of your life should be optimized, monetized, or improved. But here's the irony. The more you chase self-improvement, the more you feel like you're failing. Capitalism doesn't want you to be content. It wants you to be in a constant state of becoming. Because a person who feels whole and satisfied is a person who stops consuming. Breaking free. How to reclaim your identity. So, how do you escape a system that profits from your self-doubt? The answer isn't to reject growth, it's to redefine it. True self-improvement isn't about becoming someone else. It's about understanding yourself. It means questioning the beliefs you've inherited, rejecting artificial expectations, and embracing imperfection. Ask yourself, do I really want this, or have I been told I should want it? Am I improving for myself, or am I trying to prove something to others? Capitalism may try to sell you an identity, but real identity can't be bought. It can only be discovered. And that journey begins the moment you stop looking outward for validation and start looking inward for truth. Breaking free, can we ever be truly authentic again? The search for authenticity, is it still possible? In a world where identity is constantly shaped by external forces, social media, capitalism, and cultural expectations, can we ever reclaim a true sense of self? Or has the idea of authenticity become nothing more than another illusion? Many people believe that authenticity means being yourself. But what if you don't even know who that is? If your preferences, values, and ambitions have been shaped by the digital world, is there even a real version of you left? But here's the truth. Authenticity isn't about rejecting influence. It's about recognizing it. It's about understanding which parts of your identity are truly yours and which have been imposed upon you. The challenge is not to create a perfect identity, but to cultivate self-awareness. Solitude and silence, the lost arts of self-discovery. One of the greatest obstacles to authenticity today is the constant noise. From notifications to entertainment, from social pressure to productivity culture, modern life leaves almost no space for introspection. Historically, deep thinkers, from philosophers to artists, valued solitude as a way to understand themselves. But in an era of hyperconnectivity, solitude is often mistaken for loneliness. People fear being alone with their thoughts because, for the first time, they are forced to confront who they really are. Silence is where true identity emerges. When you remove external validation, when you stop performing for an audience, you start hearing your own voice again. Authenticity isn't about external approval. It's about internal alignment. Breaking free from the validation trap. If you've spent years curating an identity based on social expectations, breaking free can feel terrifying. Who are you when there's no one to impress? No one to validate you, no audience watching. Reclaiming authenticity means learning to exist without constant validation. It means making choices based on your values, not on trends or expectations. It means embracing the discomfort of not always being liked or understood. Most importantly, it means redefining success. Instead of measuring your worth through followers, achievements, or possessions, ask yourself, am I living in a way that feels true to me? Am I pursuing what genuinely fulfills me, or am I chasing an illusion? The future of authenticity, a new path forward. So, is authenticity still possible in today's world? The answer is yes, but only for those willing to fight for it. To live authentically in an age of superficiality requires effort. It means unlearning years of conditioning. It means resisting the pressure to perform, to optimize, to compete. It means choosing depth over aesthetics, meaning over metrics, truth over trends. Authenticity isn't something you find, it's something you create. Not by looking outward for approval, but by looking inward for understanding. And perhaps in that process, you'll finally discover who you were meant to be all along. The great illusion. Have we ever been authentic? From the moment we are born, we are shaped by external forces, family, culture, technology, and social expectations. The modern world has taken this shaping process to an extreme, turning identity into something curated, marketed, and constantly performed. But here's the real question. Was there ever a time when we were truly authentic? Or have we always been constructing versions of ourselves based on the world around us? Authenticity, as we often imagine it, might be an illusion. But that doesn't mean we should stop searching for it. Instead, we need to redefine what being real actually means in today's world. The cost of a manufactured identity. The deeper we dive into the modern identity crisis, the clearer it becomes. We are exhausted. Exhausted from keeping up appearances, from seeking validation, from trying to be someone we're not. The pressure to be interesting, successful, and admired has turned self-expression into self-exploitation. But at what cost? Anxiety, burnout, emptiness. The consequences of a fabricated identity are everywhere. The more we try to impress the world, the more disconnected we become from ourselves. The path to rediscovering who you are. So how do we break free? The truth is, there is no simple answer, no instant fix, no guidebook to reclaiming authenticity. But there are steps we can take. Silence the noise. Spend time away from social media, trends, and external pressures to listen to your own thoughts. Question everything. Ask yourself why you believe what you believe, why you want what you want. Are your desires truly yours, or were they planted in you? Embrace solitude. Stop fearing time alone. True self-awareness is born in moments of quiet reflection. Detach from validation. Recognize that self-worth doesn't come from approval, likes, or admiration. It comes from living in alignment with your values. Final question. Who are you without the mask? At the end of the day, authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. It's about embracing both the light and dark within you, without filtering or performing for an audience. So, ask yourself, if no one were watching, no one were judging, no one were expecting anything from you, who would you be? Because perhaps in answering that question, you'll finally find your way back to yourself.